Josh of joshsfrogs.com, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about our fruit fly media. Many people don't know, but this was one of the first products we ever released, and it was way back in 2004. So I started in the hobby in 2004, and my wife could not stand the smell of the fruit fly cultures. So I'd have to tuck them away in a corner, cover them up. They didn't do really well that way, but my wife didn't want to see them and definitely didn't want to smell them. So what I did is I took cultures and I started experimenting with different types of fruit fly media. And with fruit flies, since their life cycle is about 2 weeks, I got this great feedback every 2 weeks. So I'd add different things to the media, take things away. And I finally got to the point where my wife said not only could she not smell something bad, but she actually liked the smell of the fruit fly media. And so in 2004, I released the Josh's Frogs fruit fly media. And at that time, I was making 7 bags of fruit fly media at a time in my kitchen sink. So I would set the bags in the kitchen sink, fill them up with the ingredients, and then I'd twist tie them closed and I'd ship them out to customers. And it started off with me making 7 a week. And then it finally got to the point where I was making 2 batches in a week, and I was sending out 14 bags of media in a week. And it just grew from there, and it became what really made Josh's Frogs famous in the very beginning was how we took care of that problem, because the fruit fly media that was available at that time just smelled horrid. It smelled like sewage, actually, so it was really, really horrible. So I want to talk a little bit about our media and what makes it different from other medias that were around at that time and different from medias that are around this time. So since 2004, we've made 2 changes in our recipe. Everything else has stayed the same. So the first thing that we did is that in 2004, the only way that people were keeping out mold and fungus was to use methylparaben. And that's a chemical, and it does a pretty good job about keeping out mold and fungus. And so what I did is I said, hey, there's tons of other things that will keep mold and fungus at bay. And so I started adding those to the recipe. So we were making it more acidic. We were making it less acidic, trying to do that like some people will do with vinegar. We tried doing that in the powder. That didn't really work out so well. And so we kind of landed on 2 really big ingredients that will help keep mold and fungus at bay. The first one is that honey does really well in fruit fly cultures, and they actually make powdered honey. So in our fruit fly media is powdered honey. Once you add water to it, it turns right into honey. So we add honey powder to our media. That keeps different molds and fungus at bay as well. The other thing that we add is cinnamon. So you get this honey cinnamon, and that's where we get most of the smell from the fruit fly media now, is that honey and cinnamon smell that you guys have all come to love and adore. But really the whole point is not to make it necessarily smell better, smell like those 2 things, is to keep that mold and fungus away, because that's what makes it smell really bad. So that's what we did on that front. The second thing that we did is that we didn't take any corners when it came to the brewer's yeast. So brewer's yeast tends to be one of the more expensive things in the ingredients. But you can really tell fruit fly medias that don't have a lot of brewer's yeast, because what happens is after you get a couple of hatches, generations in that fruit fly culture, the flies start getting smaller and you start getting less flies, because there's just not enough protein in that media to keep the cultures going for generation after generation. So we don't skimp on the brewer's yeast. And on top of that, when it comes to the 2 different flies, you have melanogaster and then you have hydei. The hydei are much larger. They need much more protein. So in medias where you're designing it for melanogaster, if you add enough protein for the hydei, the melanogaster just don't do very well. With hydei, if you pack that full of brewer's yeast, give them the protein that they need, you can have multiple generations and the flies are going to hatch out the same size. You're not going to get smaller flies and less hatching every time. So we don't skip on the brewer's yeast. That's an expensive part of media, but it's a very important part of the media. Third thing we do is we took a look at the media and we said, hey, most people are having issues with humidity. So what can we do inside the media to make it last longer for our customers? So we experimented with a lot of things. We took a look at water crystals and said, hey, can we add water crystals that would absorb a bunch of water and release that? That didn't work out very well. So one of the things that we did is we moved away from potato flakes to potato flour, which is just a lot more denser. And when I make a culture here in a second, I'm going to show you how the potato flour holds the water up at the top and allows it to soak down to the bottom. So it can kind of control that humidity. It keeps it moist on the top and the bottom can be dry, and it can soak it up as that media gets wet. Finally, the last thing we did is we didn't skimp on the additives that we add to the media. So We started off with a multivitamin in 2004, and then everybody's familiar with Repashy and the great products that they offer. And so we were able to switch from the multivitamin we were using to specifically Supervite in our media. So all of our medias are fortified with Supervite. And then we also added some color enhancers as well too. So there's a little bit of research out there about what flies can pass on in their stomach to the frogs, and it's actually not a lot. In fact, a lot of that color stuff is actually stored in their eyeballs of those flies. And so you'll see in Josh's Frogs cultures those bright red eyes. That has to do with the stuff that we're adding to the fruit fly media to make it pass on to your animals. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how to make a culture to give you kind of an idea about how our media might be a little bit different than some other medias. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a melanogaster culture. And so what you'll notice on our bag is that it has different different mixture rate than most medias have that are on the market. So most medias on the market will have equal amounts of dry stuff to equal amounts of water. And so we designed our fruit fly media with a fruit fly flour to be much more dense so that it can take more water. So it's a half a cup of the media. I'm going to get a cup out. And you'll see this is just a powder. There's no flakes in it that are going to make it hard for the other powders that are in the media to mix together. It really creates a uniform culture. So when you take the top scoop out of that bag, it's the same as the bottom scoop out of that bag. So a lot of times with potato flakes, you'll get the powders that are part of that mix, settling down to the bottom. You got to shake it up. You won't need to do that with this. Then you normally use boiling water. I'm going to use room temperature water because all I'm going to do is show you how to dump it in there in a way that maintains the water at the top while allowing the bottom. Whoops, I'm on the milliliter side. So we're adding half a cup of media, 2/3 cup of water, and you'll notice I don't have a spoon here because we do not want to mix the media. What we want to do is pour it in a way that we get the entire top of it wet. What that does is the media will soak up right here at the top and leave dry media on the bottom. That means that the top of the media is holding as much moisture as possible, which keeps them from drying out. Anytime a fruit fly media dries out like that, it's going to mold. It's going to create fungus. It's going to grow stuff on top of it. So the more moist we can keep the top, the better. So that's why we use potato flour instead of potato flake. So what you would normally do is you would put this together and you'd wait for this to cool off. And you'll notice on the very bottom, you'll see that powder. That's totally normal. You don't need to mix it up. What happens is the top of the media gets wetter and wetter and it can't absorb that moisture. That moisture sinks down to the bottom and it absorbs into that dry media. It makes the culture last longer and keeps the top of the culture very moist. So that's a little bit about our fruit fly media, what makes us different than other fruit fly medias. Right now, as of this video, it's been 17 years since we created that media. We've sold dozens and dozens and dozens of tons of that media every single year, and thank you for making us successful in that way, and thanks for helping us to innovate and come up with new ways to serve our hobby.
Thanks so much for watching this video. Here at Josh's Frogs, bringing nature to your doorstep is more than just our mission, it's our passion. We want you to have the most successful experience possible, so we're going to be here for you before, during, and after your purchase, whether that's with our captive-bred animals, plants, insects, or the wide variety of their care products on our website. You always have access to our dedicated customer service team, on-site nature experts, hundreds of free articles via our blog, and many more videos right here on our YouTube channel, so be sure to subscribe. We're always happy to help. Just shoot us an email or give us a call. You can find all of this information and more at joshsfrogs.com. Thanks again, and see you next time.